Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our first segment of the day is regarding yesterday's White House press briefing, where reporters questioned Karine Jean-Pierre regarding bank failures and basically calls her and the Biden administration out on their prior messaging by saying, well, this is never going to happen again. We're going to put things in place to make sure that Americans' deposits are safe and banks won't fail. Wait till we get into it, folks. As always, support a true American patriot by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. Let's go ahead and roll it.
On First Republic, is this it? Are you bracing for more banks to fail?
So let me lay out a couple of things, as we haven't really had an opportunity to speak to this on the record. So as you saw, today's actions ensure the continued resilience of the banking system, including at community and other banks, which are vital to the American economy, small businesses, and workers as well. All First Republic insured and uninsured deposits are being assumed by J.P. Morgan Chase. The American people and American businesses can continue to have confidence that their deposits will be there if they need them. At the same time, these actions are being taken in a manner that ensures that the First Republic, which was severely mismanaged, is being held accountable. While depositors are being protected, shareholders will entirely lose their investments. And in addition, no taxpayer dollars will be used to facilitate this action. Any losses associated with the resolution of First Republic will be borne by fees on banks and not by taxpayers. Going forward, the president has been clear that we must be or do more to ensure the continued resilience of the banking system.
Sweet Jesus, folks. For those that are listening on audio, she is directly reading out of her binder. For the love of God, that's why you guys got to pick yourself up a Bald Brad Show mug, folks. Links in the description below, just so you have something to drink through this whole charade that she's putting on here of just reading out of her binder. I'll tell you what, coffee tastes so much better out of a Bald Brad Show mug. You got the logo on the front, you got the flag in the back, folks. Support a true American patriot. Again, links in the description. Let her continue.
The president has called on Congress to take additional action to ensure that regulators have the tools they need to hold the executives of failed institutions accountable. And he has called on regulators to reverse a series of steps taken during the prior administration to relax regulation and supervision of large regional banks like Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and now First Republic. Look, the president wanted to make sure that any losses will be borne by fees on banks and not taxpayers. That was the directive that the president gave, and that is the action that you have seen the FDIC take and regulate.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding this just a little bit, but when she said that these fees are going to be put on the banks and not the taxpayer, J.P. Morgan Chase is one of the largest banks in the world, which just makes the balloon even more. And that kind of gets brought up in this White House press briefing as well, because Joe Biden was against that whole idea, but now they're all for J.P. Morgan Chase buying First Republic Bank out and basically just acquiring all their assets or absorbing all their assets and everything behind it. Well, I just find it interesting because wouldn't those fees, yes, they're being incurred by the bank, but wouldn't the bank pass that on to the consumer? So in a nutshell, yes, it's not going to all taxpayers, but it's just going to the customers that are ones of J.P. Morgan Chase. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Let me know in the comment section below if I'm not, but that's the way I'm reading it, is that if you're a customer of theirs, you're about to incur a little bit more of a fee here by absorbing First Republic Bank.
The president today also said we have to be able to make sure that we're not back in this position again, saying I think we're well on our way to be able to make that assurance. Beyond, calling on Congress to take these steps, as you just mentioned, what steps are you taking to avoid this from happening again? I guess, why so confident?
So look, we're very confident because we have put forward tools, five specific tools that I can speak to that the president wanted to make sure that were out there. Again, we have taken decisive and forceful actions these past several weeks to make sure that the banking system is in a stable position, and that's what you've seen.
Just get it out of your mouth. And I would like to point out, folks, there's not much that they or Congress can really do. I mean, there's some mechanisms they can, but I love the fact that the Biden administration was saying, well, this isn't going to happen again. We're going to put measures in place. Oh, by the way, we're bailing everybody out, but we're going to say that we're not. Okay, we're not bailing everybody out. You did bail everybody out, which just shows that people are going to still make stupid lending practices, which we just saw in First Republic Bank. And we saw it with Credit Suisse, and we saw it with others, with the Silicon Valley Bank. And they're going to continue to do that because you're enabling that type of behavior by not allowing these banks to fail and allowing them to either be absorbed by another bank or, again, just continue their stupid lending practices because you're enabling, again, that lending practice of which they were doing before.
This administration do. Look, first, the FDIC quickly took control of Silicon Valley banks and Signature Bank's assets and protected all depositors at both banks without putting taxpayer dollars at risk.
There you go. That's what I just said. So you're enabling this stuff. You're enabling these practices by these banks because they know that you're just going to bail them out. And then you have the tenacity to go, well, the taxpayers aren't bailing them out. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Second, the Fed's new lending facility is helping banks meet the needs of all of their depositors. Third, we encourage the FDIC to exempt community banks from any special assessments it imposes to refill the Deposit Insurance Fund after recent failures. Fourth, the president called for regulators to reverse steps taken during the prior administration to weaken regulation and supervision of large regional banks, as I mentioned before, Silicon Valley, Signature.
So she's going after, if you didn't catch that last point, because she's just rambling off stuff that's in her binder, is they keep hounding the prior administration, meaning the Trump administration, on basically removing some sort of regulatory assessment test in terms of risk on a certain threshold. And many people have come out and said that even if you were to implement that risk assessment, that wouldn't have stopped what was going to happen in terms of Credit Suisse, Silicon Valley Bank, or First Republic Bank. So everything that they're implementing here, you guys, is not going to stop this from happening again. It's a bunch of lies, but that's what they do. They sit up on this podium every single day, multiple days a week, and just peddle this stupid nonsense, and we're all supposed to believe it.
Bank and First Republic. And of course, the FDIC's resolution of First Republic today protected all depositors as well. So these are the tools that we have in our tool belts to prevent this from happening again. But as you have seen over the last couple of weeks, we have taken decisive and forceful actions. And of course, we're going to be continuing to monitor this. This is something that the FDIC is monitoring, but at the direction of the president. His economic team has made sure that, again, depositors and families and American families are not paying for mistakes from these banks.
And just one more, right now, the FDIC's standard limit is $250,000. We're seeing growing support for raising that insurance cap. Is that something the president supports?
So, look, the president has proposed a number of concrete steps to strengthen our banking system.
She's going back to the binder on this question. By the way, even if you were unsure of the answer, it's a safe bet to think that the president would want to increase the FDIC insurance on your deposits of more than $250,000, especially with the inflation rate or things going in a different direction. You got wage increases happening. I mean, this goes way beyond even the conversation of the show. But even if you look at the wealth that's been absorbed by prior generations and the future generations, they're about to inherit that wealth. It'd be probably a good idea to actually increase the FDIC insurance. But again, that's for a whole different video. But it's a layup of a question is what I'm pointing to here. She's going to her binder for a layup question. Two answers. I'm not sure. Haven't spoken to the president about that yet, but I'll make sure I take it back to him after this press briefing. Or, yes, he does think it has to be increased. As far as to how much we're unsure, it's something that we are thinking about. It's been happening on conversations with our experts. You know, however you want to phrase it. I'm not the White House press secretary. I'm a guy doing this out of my freaking closet. But you understand what I'm saying. She just can't do it. She can't do it. And by the way, I heard rumors a long time ago, we did cover this on the Will Brad show, that when Joe Biden was going to announce his reelection, word was that she was going to step down. So I'm waiting, and I heard May. Okay, this was way back when. This was probably like 6 months ago, maybe 4 months ago. So I'm expecting at some point during this month, she's going to at least announce that she's going to leave. I don't know. Let me know what you think about that one in the comment section below. Do you think she's going to announce that she's going to step down? God, get out while you can, lady, please.
Called for regulators to reverse the steps taken, as I mentioned, and he's called for Congress to take additional action, so to ensure that regulators have the tools that they need on top of the tools that he's put forward. And and the president's economic team is.
I'm done with this segment. We're going to continue with the White House press briefing. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just done listening to her ramble and read and not answer the same question or give the same answer to a question that was never asked, but she's going to answer the same question that was prior in the second question, of which had nothing to do with what she was just talking about, but everything to do with the first question. You know, so here we go. We're continuing the White House press briefing of this whole idea of banks collapsing, but we also get a question regarding the debt ceiling. You want to roll?
Okay,
Thanks, Elaine. On March 13th, after the SVB collapse, we heard almost verbatim the president say what he said today with regard to calling out Congress to give regulators the tools to hold executives accountable, with regard to regulators strengthening regulations, with regard to making sure this does not happen again. And here we are again. So can you clarify?
Thank you. Somebody calling out the elephant in the room that the president already said all this stuff. We got it handled, folks. It's not going to happen again. And here we are. Just like 2 months later, dealing with the same crap. I mean, you almost name the issue going on. Joe Biden somehow was going to resolve it. And then when it kind of gets buried under the rug in kind of the media because there's so much other ish going on, then when we have another bleep that hits the fan, like another bank failing, then all of a sudden it raises awareness again to Joe Biden's failings. And then they say, oh, well, we got this whole thing, this plan in place that's going to resolve the issue. So this is, the theme that's going on here. But when we went over that in the first segment of their plan, it's not going to resolve anything. It actually doesn't stop banks from failing at all. So you're probably going to see another bank fail in the coming months here. And then we're going to just have a rinse and repeat again. In the same way, every messaging from immigration to foreign policy to domestic policy has been Joe Biden creates a bleep storm. He causes the problem. And then he says he has all these mechanisms and plans to fix it. And then it gets buried under the rug. And then when it comes out in the news again, they just regurgitate the same nonsense. And she's bringing it up here about the regurgitating of the nonsense that's being spewed here that you say you're going to fix it. Here we are again. What's different?
Between March 13th and today, what has changed, if anything? Have any of those tools gotten sharper? And how has he reached out to Congress?
So a couple of things. The First Republic, the Silicon Valley Bank, and the Signature each faced unique, very, very unique vulnerabilities. So just want to put that out there. And since our...
Okay, you could say that about virtually anything, but in the grand scheme of things, no, it really wasn't. It really wasn't that different. They made a run on the banks. They're making terrible lending practices to a specific type of group of people, usually the wealthy, by the way, and other mechanisms in terms of what into them having high interest rates or even offering, in some cases, very, very low interest rates. But again, it's out of the scope of this video, or else we'll be here all day. So there is some truth to what she's saying, but in the grand scheme, in the holistic viewpoint or the holistic picture, bird's eye view of what's taking place here, it's really not that different between all three of the banks in terms of what was going on. Poor mismanagement. You saw it from Silicon Valley Bank, even the way the mismanagement happened, not just with the lending practices, but also just the PR of what they were doing, which basically scared all the customers, which is why they had to run on the bank. Very similar to Credit Suisse, even though Credit Suisse was going down for a long period of time due to mismanagement and their lending practices. And gee, what do you think I'm going to say about the First Republic Bank? Oh, same thing. The lending practices that have been going on quite some time. They had a run on the bank, poor mismanagement, and so you're having the same thing happening here. Now you see the holistic view that's similar to all three banks, but she's going to say it's all unique, you guys. Just unique.
Our administration has taken decisive and, again, forceful actions. We have seen deposit flow stabilize at regional banks. So that is important because of those tools that I just laid out and because we took actions very quickly. And we've seen stronger than expected earnings at many banks, including regional banks. So the actions, again, that we've taken has helped. These were unique situations, the three banks that you all have been following clearly and that I just mentioned. And again, we're going to continue to monitor this situation. This is something that FDIC, this is a process that they have taken, that they have monitored, and we just want to make sure that the depositors are not the ones who have to pay the bill, or taxpayers, right? And so we're going to continue to do the work that we've been doing these past several weeks.
For mid and large size banks, has anything changed with regard to the power of the tools?
I just laid out, we think the tools are indeed working. The three banks have had unique vulnerabilities.
Oh, yeah. It's so amazing. It is so amazing this lady could just sit here and lie like that. Yeah, the tools are working. If they were working, this wouldn't have happened. That's the thing, is just be honest. Like, on Joe Biden can't do anything here. I mean, literally, you can't do anything because this isn't working. But I also mean, he's the president of the United States. There's not much he can do here. That's up to the banks to make wise decisions. And you know what? You shouldn't have banks making bad decisions able to be successful by bailing them out. You have to let them fail. I understand there's consequences to that. I understand that's easy for me to say because my money's not within those banks. I use credit unions, not-for-profit unions. It's what I call them, where you look at these other ones that are failing, they're pretty much for-profit banks. They just look at you as another dollar sign. And when you have the government constantly bailing them out, like we saw under the Obama administration, God, who was vice president when that happened? Oh, it was Joe Biden. Now we're doing the same thing over again with Joe Biden at the helm. It's just amazing how she's going to sit here and spew all this nonsense. Yeah, no, the tools are working, Karine, sure.
And just lay those out. We've seen deposit flow stabilize at regional banks, but we also seen stronger than expected earnings at many banks that include the regional banks. So we see that the process that has been put in place, the tools that have been put in place, has actually been working. This is not 2008. This is a very, very different time than 2008.
Yes and no. And if you actually look at the banks that did fail in terms of the assets and just the valuation of it, it's actually very similar to 2008. You just had more banks fail in 2008 than you did now in the end of 2022, 2023 here at the beginning. So there is some truth to what she says, but it's a spin right there. It is a big spin because you haven't had a mass bailout on a governmental level per se, like you did in 2008, where you had 22 to 25 banks or something like that. I'm really reaching back in my memory, folks. It's 2023. I haven't talked about this since I was in college. So there is a comparison there to be made. You're just not seeing the effects of it. And some people are saying the effects just haven't been felt yet, that it's really being masked by a slower rate of government bailout in terms of you're not having a lot of banks necessarily fail all at once like you kind of did in 2008, whereas they're kind of slowly, like a domino effect, just kind of falling one after another. And so because that is happening and they're slowly rolling out the FDIC insurance of $250,000 to depositors, or like you saw in Silicon Valley Bank, where it doesn't matter if it's $250,000 or more, you're all getting bailed out by the government and they're going to tell you it's all FDIC insured. It's a lie. The taxpayer are bailing them out in some way, shape, or form. That's the only way to get that money. But again, there's a comparison to be made here, but also at the same time, there is a differential in terms of now than 2008, obviously.
One more on the debt ceiling, because McCarthy and Speaker McCarthy, I should say, reiterated yet again that we will not pass a debt ceiling that just raises it without doing something about our debt, talking about the need for negotiation. I know your position that that this is the Republicans' burden, right, to raise the debt ceiling. But it's the
I just want to pause it for those that aren't familiar with what she's referring to. Karine Jean-Pierre keeps saying it's the Republicans this, it's Republicans' fault. They should just do it. They should just raise the debt ceiling. They should just be idiots and do it. I would say, and I will say, you guys, if the debt ceiling isn't raised probably by June-ish, we are going to default on our payments, and there is a possibility of our credit rating lowering. How do I phrase this without making hysteria over it? It would make 2008 look like a little like a playground. Like 2008 was a joke compared to what could possibly happen here if we don't raise the debt ceiling. So some bleep could hit the fan here. They're going to raise it. I think both sides are bluffing. But the fact that Joe Biden's not willing to meet says a lot. And, maybe he's not willing to meet because we all saw his schedule from the White House aides saying that dude can't do anything after a certain point in time. Like in the evenings, he can't do anything. On the weekends, he can't do anything. Early in the morning, he can't do anything. This guy's very limited to when he can actually show face because he's sleeping all the time, or he gets fuzzy-minded. He gets fuzzy-minded is what they're saying.
President's economy. So is he not going to have a meeting with McCarthy until McCarthy gives in? Do you think McCarthy's bluffing here?
The president is prepared to talk about budget and appropriations process. That's what we have said. We are not a deadbeat nation. The president said that. You heard directly from him moments ago. And the president said he's happy to meet with McCarthy, but not on whether or not the debt limit gets extended. That's not negotiable. We are continue to be very firm about that, to be very clear. The president, again, said this himself. Look, what they are proposing would hurt every American and cost 6 million jobs and threaten Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid payments. That's what they're threatening. That's what the American economy that they're saying
Still
that they're
spewing
going
these
to
lies,
hold
by the way,
hostage.
folks.
And again, Congress must act. It is their constitutional duty. We've been very clear on what we will negotiate about, which is appropriations and the budget. But we just are going to be very clear. They must act and do their constitutional duty on this.
So what's interesting here is, again, she's still going to peddle. They're going to go after the social programs. They're going to cut this. You're all going to lose your jobs. I mean, look, like, there is some truth to the fact that this could be a massive bleep storm. Again, I'm not allowed to cuss on YouTube anymore, but a huge issue if they don't raise the debt ceiling. The bigger thing is we need to get our spending under control here. And if you haven't seen those prior episodes of the Bald Brad Show, just YouTube Bald Brad economy or Bald Brad talk about the deficit or whatever it is. We spend like 70% of our budget on social programs. It's insane. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep spending like we're idiots. But when you got idiots being elected into office by other idiots, that's what you get, idiotic behavior. Well, the idea of the press calling out Karine Jean-Pierre and the Biden administration really comes to a point here, because Biden had been espousing this idea of bigger corporations. He doesn't want bigger corporations. But then when you have a bank like First Republic Bank failing, and you have JP Morgan Chase, really the only bank to offer buying everything out, the White House is all for it, which just makes them an even bigger bank than what they were previously. I mean, this is one of the biggest banks in the world, and Joe Biden just turning a blind eye to it. So this gets raised to a point here by a reporter.
Just to follow up, this administration, we sat here, we've talked about corporate consolidation as something that you want to push against. Our reporting is that JP Morgan was the only bidder that offered to take the entire bank over. The administration, I just want to be clear, you support that because it was the only option, or you support that because it was the best option?
No, I totally understand the question. This is an FDIC process, and these decisions are made by the FDIC about the bids and all.
Passing the buck on to somebody else, folks. We just got done saying this is what they do. You name the problem that Joe Biden caused, they're going to blame somebody else. Immigration, somehow that's Donald Trump's fault. Inflation, somehow that's Donald Trump's fault on top of Putin and Xi somehow. I don't know how that one got mixed in there, but it did. When you have increased gas prices, that was called the Putin's price hike. That was his fault. You have a foreign policy issue. Well, it's a mixture of Taiwan mixed with the supply chain that's happening because of China. But we can't say China released the Wuhan virus, even though they did out of a Wuhan lab leak. Who knows if now we're going to get removed off YouTube. So head over to Rumble, folks, if you haven't already, because God only knows when this thing's going to get shut down here. But it's just amazing how they're going to sit there and pass the buck on to somebody else. So now it's just an FDIC issue, folks. It's an FDIC issue. Everything they said about corporate consolidation, no, forget about that. That was just a mishap. Forget about that. We're supposed to be gaslit now and pretend like that was never said, and now pass the buck on to somebody else.
Ultimate sale in this particular instance with First Republic. So this is something that they run. The directive from the president is very clear. When he talks to his economic team, the direction he gave them is to prioritize protecting depositors, workers, and small businesses, while also ensuring that taxpayers are not on the hook and shareholders lose their investment. That's the directive that he's given to his economic team. But as far as the process, the bids, and the sales, that is something that the FDIC moves forward.
Didn't push against this deal that makes the biggest American bank bigger.
It is an FDI process, as I just mentioned. This is something that they are in charge of, and they are the ones who decide on the bids and the sales. What the president has done is given his economic team a directive on how to protect taxpayers and also depositors, and so that is what I can share with you. FDIC runs this process.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Just blame somebody else, put it on them, even though you sat there for a long while, by the way, which is why they're calling it out. You sat there for a long while saying, well, we're not really into the corporate consolidation. We don't want big corporations. And now, when this is happening, they're just, oh, well, it's somebody else's issue. So it's astonishing. We got a little bit of a bonus clip here for you, folks, before we move on to our next segment of the day. We got the man, the myth, the legend, the other gladiator, Philip Wegman of Real Clear Politics. Maybe, honestly, out of this entire White House press briefing, probably has the most important question, and finally calling out another elephant in the room of somehow these politicians have information beforehand of an event happening, like First Republic Bank going down, and selling certain shares and then investing in JP Morgan Chase later on. He brings it up here, and watch how she scurries out, folks, real quick.
Thank you. Another one on the banking issue. I'm wondering what the president's message is to members of Congress who might see the current banking shakeup or future banking troubles as an opportunity to make a buck. Because, for instance, we've already seen some members of Congress who have had what seems like particularly good luck offloading shares of First Republic Bank and turning around and buying shares of JP Morgan?
Look, I'm not going to speak directly to that. I have not seen those reports. I get what you're saying. What we will continue to say is that the president is going to make sure that it's not the taxpayers that have to pay for this or lose on this. We want to make sure that they're protected. Depositors, families, small
Read out
businesses.
that binder,
We've been very
Karine.
clear, and it does not protect investors. First
There you
Republic
go.
shareholders and bondholders will lose
Yeah.
their entire investments. That's what the president
Get to that
has
talking point,
directed
Karine.
his economic team to do. FDIC runs this process, and I'm just going to leave it there. But the president has been really, really clear. No taxpayer money is being used to cover cost for this resolution, and he wants to make sure that they are protected and that the mismanagement of these banks, like for example, First Republic, is being held accountable. And so that's our focus right now. I'm just not going to speak to any kind of hypotheticals that you're laying out for me.
It has been very clear when it comes to the wealthy that they should pay their fair share, that they should not skirt, tax law. Is there a need for the president to go to wealthy lawmakers and say, if you have access to new information that maybe the public doesn't, perhaps you should take a step back?
Look, what I've been very clear about is what the president wants to make sure, that we protect taxpayers and that investors have to make sure that, that they are held accountable. And that's what the president's going to continue to say. Of course, the president has always said, even with his environment in economic policy, that we need to make sure that we look out for the little guy. This is why we don't believe in trickle-down economy. This is why we believe in building an economy from the bottom up, middle out. That is what you see in every economic policy that the president has put forth, legislation that he's put forth that has been historic and has led to that type of economy where we do not leave anyone behind. And that is our focus. Thank you.
There she goes, just running off the stage. By the way, Peter Ducey didn't get a question in, and it's amazing. It's all about the little guy. Yeah. You're going to do everything you can to stop bad behavior from happening by incentivizing bad behavior. And then when somebody mentions about bad behavior, which again, I think is the elephant in the room here of how these politicians in Congress are somehow making and getting lucky, as you heard from Philip Wegman. Just the luck is amazing by like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and others. It's just amazing how somehow they make these sell-offs or these bids at certain moments in time when nobody else knew any information about it. But she doesn't want to comment on it because, heck, Joe Biden was probably, allegedly, maybe one of those same people. And who knows who else is behind the iron curtain there in this freaking government of ours with these slimy politicians that need to have the swamp drained real quick. Somehow these people keep getting voted in, folks. And it ain't me. It ain't me voting for any of these people. I don't vote for Nancy Pelosi. God, she's terrible. I don't, it's not me. Okay? We got to be blaming somebody else here. I hope you enjoyed that first segment. We're moving on to our second segment of the day. We got John Kennedy here. God, this guy just keeps coming up in my feed, folks. He's amazing. Well, there's this idea that these Democrats and progressive leftists want the wealthy to pay their fair share. If you look at like the top 10% of taxpayers, they pay virtually all net tax here in the United States. Like the bottom 50% they pay like under 5% tax or something like that. Don't quote me on that exact amount, but it's extremely, extremely small. So now they want to tax big corporations. And Kennedy here brings up a great point of, if that's the case, then why is everybody leaving blue states? Why are the wealthy leaving blue states and going to red states? Watch your reaction.
Dr. Is it Clausen? Clausen?
Yes.
Yeah. Why do you and Dr. Yegan, why do y'all want to punish wealthy people?
I think I can speak for both of us that we're not interested in punishing anyone. We're interested
Well,
in
you're
having
interested
a
in taxing
fiscal
the hell out of
system.
them more than anybody else.
I think
Why,
the
what makes you
reforms
think?
that Professor
What makes you think that making tax policy on the basis of class or status makes sense?
I think it's a very American phenomena that throughout the history of the income tax, we have valued progressivity, and our current income tax does that. We used to rely on things like tariffs to raise revenue. Tariffs are regressive consumption taxes that disproportionately hurt the poor. Like, we believe in this country that those with the greater ability to pay should pay more of the burden. And that's part of what a healthy capitalism does. It enables people to gain from things like trade and technological change and business innovation, and to contribute a little more to the fiscal system when they're very successful in doing so. And I think that that's a very legitimate way to structure the tax system.
Can I ask you a question?
I personally think that she's misconstruing the idea of it being healthy. Somebody can appear to be healthy, but in reality, they're actually really sick. And I think that when you increase taxes on the wealthy, that actually hurts innovation, and that actually hurts expansion of whatever corporation you're talking about that's being taxed up the wazoo. And I'd like to point out, I think it's Bernie Sanders said that he wants 100% of people's money. Anything, basically, once they cross the threshold of $1 billion, anything past that goes directly to the government. So that's a sickness in terms of you hurting a corporation or an entity or a person by having a certain threshold. There's not going to be any desire then to innovate and ultimately expand and ultimately reinvest into a company when you know that anything past a certain point, the government's just going to take it. In the same way here is she wants to increase and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Again, they can never give an idea or an exact amount of what their fair share should be. It's very rare. The fact that Bernie Sanders actually came out and gave a specific number is extremely rare, but at least he's honest. I'll give him that. But this lady is really disingenuous here. And again, I think she's missing the mark here by saying it's healthy when in actuality, somebody can appear being healthy, but in reality is very sick. And I'll give you a prime example of what I mean by that. If you look at a lot of people's personal finances, somebody could be rolling around in an Escalade, like an extremely nice car. They have a nice house. It might appear that they're healthy financially, but in reality, they're not healthy at all. And that tends to actually be the case where 8 in 10 Americans are actually living paycheck to paycheck. And that threshold basically rolls over into somebody making 6-figure income as well. So almost regardless of income, the vast majority of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, but they look as if they're healthy, but financially they're actually sick. So that's just to correlate what's happening here, at least what my opinion is in terms of what's being said.
Yes.
Why do you think so many wealthy people are leaving New York City?
New York City is, an incredible city of innovation, immigration, entrepreneurship.
Yeah, but why are so many wealthy people leaving?
I think there are big advantages to living near centers of entrepreneurial activity, and we see that on the west.
You think they're leaving to be nearer to centers of entrepreneurial activity, do you?
Well, I don't think there are a lot of people, fleeing New York City. That New York City has.
Sure, there are. There are thousands. I mean, there've been study after study after study. Why are so many wealthy people leaving New York City?
I think there's an enormous number of wealthy people who are in New York City and continue.
But why are so many leaving?
I can't speak to why particular people.
I can tell you why.
That just shows you right there that she doesn't want to have an honest conversation. Again, it says a tax law and policy, right? The chair in tax law and policy. She's not being honest here. And you can't have a conversation, especially with somebody that wants to create policy or give some sort of advice on tax policy. You can't have a conversation, nor should these people actually be involved in any of these conversations, because it just shows you how disingenuous they are. And it shows the bias and the ultimate objective that they want to do. It actually just cripple this country from the inside out. They won't admit that they do, but just shows you right there with that one question, they can't be trusted.
Why? It's taxes. You know that as well as I do. It's
I think if you look at the economic...
Some of it's crime, but most of it is taxes.
Well,
people vote with their feet. The same reason that people are leaving California and moving to Austin.
If you look at California, it's one of the most successful economies in the world, and it continues to be so. It attracts people.
But they're losing...
The only reason it's extremely successul is because of the ports. You have one of the biggest ports in the world, the Port of Long Beach, which isn't too far from my home. If you remove the ports and just geographically, we got lucky, right? Being on the coast here at state of California and having these ports. If you remove that, California is nothing. California, yes, I think is one of the biggest agriculture producers in the United States. One of the biggest, or at least used to be. I don't know what it is now. But outside of that, I mean, really, they have nothing. California has nothing. The what are you going to say? The film industry here in Los Angeles, that's pretty much been outsourced to Georgia, Toronto, New Mexico as well. It's just a lot cheaper, a lot more tax incentives there. So to say that we have a good economy, by the way, we have a deficit right now. So you can't say that we have a good economy. Again, this idea that we're healthy all the time is not true. We have a sickness. We appear to be healthy, but in reality, we are not.
People.
I don't think it's in any danger of decline, nor is New York City. And these are very vibrant places.
I don't think we're going to ever agree.
Reasons. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to ever agree. But I appreciate the time of all three of you.
Thank you.
To be fair, there also are people moving the other way. There are people who move to New York. They just don't all leave from New York. It's a two-way street in and out of New York, and it's a two-way street between Austin and California. People leave Texas and go to California, and some of them do very well.
Well, that's true, Sheldon, but I can't.
That is true, but you still have a net negative. You have a net loss in the state of California of like 100,000 or more leaving every year than you do people coming in. So you have people coming in, and that might be due to work or whatever, but you also have wealthy people leaving the state of California like no other. And we know that too, just one, obviously because of the studies that are out there, but also too, if you look at kind of where people are moving in other states, there's a reason why the housing market has gone up through the roof. It's because people are selling their property here, wealthy people, and they're ultimately going somewhere else in the United States. I mean, it is so obvious, you guys, which is amazing to me, that these people can't actually be honest in terms of why people leave from one state, predominantly blue states, and go to red states or states that have no income tax, state income tax or state tax. That we all know why they go there. I mean, financially, you'd be an idiot if you have a lot of money to stay in the state of California or like New York City, for example. Why would you? The state tax on that is through the roof. When you can go somewhere else, you just saved anywhere from 10 to 15% or more just by moving to another state, and you're talking millions of dollars.
I can show you study after study after study, as you well know, and as the professor knows, that shows that people are leaving high-tax states and moving to low-tax states. All you have to do is
Well, they also leave.
all you have to do is look at the demographics. Pick the 9 states that have, say, a state income tax, and compare that, or that don't have a state income tax, and compare that to the states that do. It's called tax avoidance, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly legal.
People have different preferences. You know, if you look at where immigrants choose to live in the United States, they often go to those same places that you were talking about. You know, so I do think that, you know, there's movement in both directions.
Yeah, but here's my point.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the conversation was around wealthy people. If you listen to what the tax policy lady was saying, as well as the other senator, they're talking about not necessarily wealthy people. They could be talking about middle to lower income people. The whole thing was talking about wealthy people leaving, and those are who you want to tax. You want to tax the big corporations. You want to tax the wealthy, which is why Amazon didn't go to where AOC was, because she wanted to tax them up the wazoo. They basically fled the area. You have Elon Musk leaving the state of California, going to Texas and other places that are more business friendly. It's obvious in terms of why people are leaving these states, and they don't want to admit it.
Here's what I think rational people do, and here's what I bet all 3 of you would do, and I bet Sheldon would do it because he's a smart guy. Okay. If he won the lottery tomorrow and won $10 million and paid his taxes and has $6 million left, he's going to at least consider, you are too, moving to Florida. Because they don't have a state income tax.
For the record, no, I wouldn't. Never crossed my mind.
Well, most rational, well, I don't mean you're irrational. So, you know
No, he's
irrational.
It's quite rational to not want to live
when
in
you're
Florida
liquid,
right now.
when you're liquid, and you don't have to pay a 6% off the top versus 0%, it's a rational economic move, is it not?
I agree. It's rational. I mean, the thing about taxes that we're talking about is they're a cost or a price, and so claiming that this cost or price doesn't matter is essentially throwing out the very basic law of demand, the basic fundamental idea in economics. The prices matter, the costs matter.
See, this is what this always boils down to, and there's no way we'll ever agree. Okay.
They won't agree, and they're being disingenuous. And this guy's going to give the basic economics 101 between supply, cost, demand, price, and all that other stuff. At the end of the day, they're being disingenuous. The fact that you would sit there, and it was a silly example, but his point was made here by Senator Kennedy, is that if you were to win the lottery, you would be foolish to not at least consider going to a state that has zero like state tax. You'd be insane. If you went to your financial advisor, all of them would say, yeah, you probably want to get out of the state of California. You could stay here. You're going to take a massive hit, an extremely massive hit, or you can go somewhere else. That's why you see Tiger Woods. That's why you see all these NBA professionals, sports athletes go to those states because they're saving, a ton of money. And these people are going to be disingenuous. So amazing. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. I saved the best for last, folks, in this segment. You have pro-sanctuary city Mayor Lori Lightfoot the failure, begs Texas, begging them on her feet one last time to stop sending illegal aliens to Chicago. For years, you have places like New York City and Chicago boasting, look at us, these sanctuary cities. Look at those red scumbags, those Republicans, you bigots. Look what you're doing. Now we go, hey, you know, we got a massive influx here created by a Joe Biden, the head of the Democrat Party. Hey, you want to boast? Why don't you take all of them? We'll send a few thousand your way. Well, they can't handle it. They can't handle it. Hit that like and subscribe button, folks, if you haven't already. You are supporting a true American patriot. Just you leaving a comment down below does yeoman's work in supporting the show. If you don't know what to write something as simple as good morning, USA, screw Joe Biden. Anything. Get it out there. Let loose. So you have Chicago mayor, failed mayor, Lori Lightfoot, is begging Texas Governor Greg Abbott to not send any more illegal aliens to the Windy City, despite the fact that just 2 years ago, and we got the receipts to prove it, just 2 years ago, she signed measures strengthening Chicago's status as a sanctuary city. You got to love it. You know who is very reminiscent in this type of messaging too is Governor Eric Adams of New York City, saying the exact same thing. Here begging basically Doug Ducey of Arizona and Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, as well as Ron DeSantis too, because it's just not just them two busing, but so is Ron DeSantis, basically begging them to stop doing it because their infrastructure was collapsing. Over a few thousand illegal aliens. They couldn't even handle a few thousand. Put it this way, what Greg Abbott sees in one day is what Lori Lightfoot sees in like a month or 2 months, multiple months. So on Sunday, the outgoing mayor, she's doing everything she can before she actually leaves the mayoral position. She sent Abbott a letter imploring him to make Texas carry the burden of the thousands upon thousands of illegal aliens flooding the border. According to the mayor, the Texas governor is going to begin resending illegal immigrants via bus starting Monday to Chicago. Basically just funding Greyhound buses, sending them up there. You gotta love it. So, quote, since we begun responding to the arrival of migrants sent by your delegation in August 2022, we have shouldered the responsibility of carrying more than 8,000 men, women, and children with no resources of their own, she said in a letter. That number continues to grow. Since August of 2022, folks, they've only seen 8,000. Literally, Texas gets this in one day. And by the way, this number will probably double for Texas once Title 42 is expired. They're going to see anywhere from like 16,000 people and up a day. It's insane. And she can't handle, since August of 2022, almost a year ago, 8,000 people. Their infrastructure's falling apart, but they want to be a sanctuary city. And you got to love it. We have shouldered the responsibility. We've shouldered the burden. You wanted to, I can't cuss in here. I almost said dip. You know what? Dip poop, I guess we got to say. So in reality, Lightfoot shouldn't be surprised Texas sent them her way. She was practically asked for individuals to come to Chicago on multiple occasions. Here's a little thing from 2019. We got a tweet here from the failing mayor. Says, yes, Chicago, we must be a sanctuary city. We've got to stand up to the Trump administration's racist, anti-immigrant terror and make every Chicagoan is safe, regardless of citizenship status. And we've got to strengthen the welcoming city ordinance by eliminating carve-outs. What an idiot. She had no clue how to govern, man. I mean, but hey, she's a Democrat. What should we expect here? Look what Joe Biden's doing. I mean, look at every Democrat-ran city. It's ran poorly, and people love it that are Democrats. How they love it. So now she's saying there's no more room in her city. We saw the same thing from Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, where he was literally asking residents of New York City to start housing illegal aliens. You can't make this up. So this is what kind of a snippet says. Chicago is a welcoming city. Yeah, if you want to be shot and burglarized and robbed. And we collaborate with county, state, and community partners to rise to this challenge. But your lack of consideration or coordination in an attempt to cause chaos and score political points has resulted in a critical tipping point in our ability to receive individuals and families in a safe, orderly, and dignified way, rather. I'm sorry. It's hard reading this when you're trying not to laugh. It's so insane. She's going to boast for years, and now she's getting what she wanted, and now she's complaining about it. Eric Adams, again, did the same thing in New York City, and he's asking for billions of dollars from the federal government. He had to declare a state of emergency over this stuff because he got a few thousand illegal immigrants, but they want Texas and Arizona to take in millions. Quote, we simply have no more shelter spaces and resources to accommodate an increase of individuals at this level. with little coordination or care that does not pose a risk to them or others. You know what, Greg? Keep sending them, brother. Double it, triple it if you have to, man. Start sending those Greyhounds. You know, really what the state of Texas and Arizona should do? Just straight up put out a national donation and just have people, Republicans, funding these Greyhound buses and just start sending them to all these sanctuary cities. So you really just burden their infrastructure. I mean, it will collapse, you guys. It really will. They basically thought they were bluffing. They thought Doug Ducey, Greg Abbott, and Ron DeSantis were bluffing all this stuff. They're never going to do it. They're never going to do it. They're already being hit with a financial crisis down there, having to incur this burden, this cost of all these illegal aliens caused by Joe Biden. They're not going to do it. So now that they are doing it, they literally don't have the infrastructure. Then that comes from their own mouths, as you just saw from Lori Lightfoot here, but also we've seen it from Mayor Eric Adams over there in New York. The letter came just hours after Texas authorities started a manhunt for a. Are you sitting down for this, folks? I'm sure many of you heard this story. This is insane. And it's because of Joe Biden and the Democrats. They're at fault here for this. The letter came just hours after Texas authorities started a manhunt for a suspected illegal alien who allegedly killed 5 individuals, including an 8-year-old child, in a spray of gunfire Friday night. God, if he's illegal, how do you get that gun? Because I was told they want to remove all our guns, and that was going to solve the issue that the bad guys will just line up and turn in their guns, right? If you're offering gift cards like we saw in one area, people just hand in their guns. No, criminals will totally do it. They will totally do it. Bunch of idiots. Texas, like other border states, has been dealing with the crisis of illegal immigration for years, and that mass shooting is just the latest ramification. So what is Lori Lightfoot's solution to this mess? Well, she thinks it could be solved through more federal funding, as you could expect, and policy changes. Like her Democratic colleagues in New York City dealing with the same problem, one can only assume that means amnesty. And I said it time and time again, this is the plan of the Democrat Party. Sit there, have a massive flood of people pouring across the border, millions. There is anywhere from 22 to 25 million illegal aliens presently in the United States. That's more than the population of a handful of our states. Like double digits, folks. If you look at the population in terms of where people are aggregated at, more than double digits. There are more illegal aliens than we have population of double digits of our states. You don't think that's going to swing the vote when they talk about amnesty here? That is the end goal. And you are never going to see a Republican elected again, ever. Both locally and for the presidency. Of course, this chaos will never end until the border is sealed and thousands of illegal aliens are deported. Don't count on Lightfoot to send President Joe Biden a letter demanding those sorts of policies, though. No way. It seems she's rather accused GOP colleagues of being callous and cruel, even though for years she told illegal immigrants from around the globe they can find sanctuary under her watch. And you got to love the fact that they're saying this is cruel, it's inhumane, it's terrible. They get to pick where they want to go. It's in their own language, by the way. They have multiple languages that they're offering these illegal aliens, and they get to pick on where they want to go. Nobody's forcing them to get on the bus. They opt into it. And where are they picking? Well, I heard Lori Lightfoot has a lovely place for us to go. I heard Eric Adams has a lovely place for us to go. I heard Bowser in Washington, D.C. has a lovely place for us to go. So why don't we go there? They want to welcome us with open arms. And now they're saying, don't come over here. We ain't able to help you. You got to love it, folks. You got to love the grandstanding. And, they say one thing and do another. It's typical stuff from the Democrat Party. I'm not saying Republicans do it, but hell, Democrats do it way, way more than Republicans do. A little bit of a longer episode today. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun hanging out with you. I enjoy spending these mornings with you, with fellow true American patriots that actually care about this country, that actually care in making America great again. And let's hope we got number, 47 at this point. Donald Trump coming in. He was Mr. Number 45. We're going to see Joe Biden's running for re-election, folks. Do you think he's going to make it? Let us know in the comment section below. Do you think Joe Biden's just going to last 2 more years? Or do you think he'll actually make it an extra 6 years if you include 2024 and the 4 years that goes included in this? I don't see it, man. He's not doing any primary debates, by the way. They're going to lock him up in the basement once again. There's no way in hell this guy's going to be able to do a freaking debate. He can barely read from a teleprompter. The only way this guy's reading it from a debate, or reading from a teleprompter in a debate, or heck, getting the questions ahead of time like we saw from Hillary Clinton, or just able to be somewhat coherent in thought just a little bit, is if he's doped up somehow. I really do believe that, and that was allegedly happening on the last primary against Donald Trump. So let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, folks. We'll be back here for another episode of The Paul Brown Show.